Namaste, everyone, and welcome back to the class. I will start with the invocation. Om Bhadram Karnebhi Shrunuyama Devaha Bhadram Pashyemakshabhiryajatraha Sthirai व्यशेमदेवहितं यदायुः स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो वृद्धश्रवाः स्वस्ति नः पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नस्तार्क्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So we have concluded the second section of the first chapter, first Mundaka, second Khanda, with 13th verse, which is telling the knower of Brahma Vidya, addressing the knower of Brahma Vidya, that if ever you have a Jignasu approaching you with the knowledge, some fundamental knowledge, having a Vivek knowledge of the Sar of Vedas in general, could be just heard generally also, but has some clarity about has some doubts regarding the subject of Vedas, the topic that they talk about, and has some confusions and seeks to clarify them and approaches you with vidhi. And in that vidhi represents the jignasa and readiness to learn. The important thing is that the knower of Brahman always must always discern the readiness to learn, because where there is readiness to learn, knowledge transacts effortlessly. So that readiness to learn and go to any that walk the line kind of a thing to to pursue the knowledge for their sake, so that the knowledge fructifies in their life, so that the knowledge matures in their life, so that they're able to hold the maturity of knowledge and guide their life on that basis, on that ground. So to them, they said, without any constraints, without any restraints, give the entire knowledge. Enough for it, for the seeker to proclaim that their doubts have been eliminated and now they can pursue Vidya at the level of self reflection and self correction. And if, as and when repetition is needed, the Shravanam goes on for the sake of strengthening the perception. With this, the topic of Apara Vidya is completed. So he started by asking, Shaunaka is asking, what is that with which I know everything? And the teacher had said, there are two things to be known, Aparavidya and Paravidya. Aparavidya topic has been fairly touched upon. He had introduced Paravidya in a very small way, just introduced it by saying Aksharam Brahma is the topic of Paravidya and gave those qualities of Aksharam Brahma um, and how it is to be got. I think it was the yeah, so he addressed this, and so he had first started with Aparavidya in this section that we concluded, and now we have a fair clarity about what is the topic. Aparavidya deals with knowledge of Karmakand and all various karmas, and that knowledge is to be also had for Gati, improving the Gati, but it will still keep one in samsara. It does not eradicate samsara, it does not destroy samsara, because it does not touch, it has no access to avidya. And that is a very important point, that avidya becomes the central um, bifurcation or central factor on which the knowledge is bifurcated as jnana yoga and karma yoga. As long as avidya is kept untouched, no access, that's the right word. The entire realm of karma, aparavidya, has no access to avidya. If anything, it just goes on strengthening it. The maximum that karma vidya can give is different loka prapti. And yes, that loka prapti has to be after death only. It cannot be before, because already now you are earning that karma. And on death, there's certain karmas that come within the lifetime, and certain karmas have uh, length of time when they fructify. And that is why uh, the verse had started with Tadetat Satyam. Those karmas are also relative truths. That knowledge is also a relative truth. And that is what is highlighted by saying that those karmas that can take you up to those lokas also, but when done correctly, they start developing a quality to see through the realm of gains of karma phal. What is it that you get through karma phal? When you start recognizing that it is a limited end, and that limited end is all that, however much karma you may do, the end is always going to be limited. However well a karma is done, however diligent it is, and however um, perfectly done karma, following every injunction, also, even then, the phal will be limited. And that capacity of a person to see through that realm develops nirvedam, that disinterest, disenchantment, in the sense that it doesn't look worthwhile. That effort doesn't look worthwhile. Karma's realm and its effort, it's a very strenuous thing to live a life according to Vedic injunctions. And only then will you get those karma phal. And it's a tough thing to live. And is that effort worthwhile? Whoever feels worthwhile pursues it. But the minute you start seeing the worthlessness of it, or you see the limited worth of it, nirvedam, gradually the mind loses its thrust for action of such realms. So he said, those are the aparavidya and its gains. And this topic should be very, very clear, because it comes extremely clear in this portion of Mundaka Upanishad. And everywhere else, you may just get samples of it. Of course, the whole thing is repeated in different ways, but here you get entire Lokantara journey. What you did in what we saw in Katha Upanishad as different branches of the tree. Jivatma goes, lives on different branches. That entire journey is represented here, is karma based and has no access, apara vidya, however much you know how to do the karmas. And as we see even in even those karmatas that is represented in the Upadeshas are, who knows even the karmas that can bring relative their idea of immortality. They are doing the karmas for that, invoking the anugraha to say we will become immortal jivas. In that sense means attain brahmalok prapti. Even that, um, Shastra says the minute the karma phal is exhausted, chuti, there is a fall. And fall means fall from those realms back into the realm of Purusharth. So human Purusharth seems to be the realm of in between. That's why they say seven lokas up and down. You know, this is that place where the free will is also there, and sukha dukha combination of experiences is there. There is not so much sukh that you get deluded in sense pleasures, and there is not so much dukh that you are not able to pursue an independent purusharth like Shastra Vidya. So, this is the balance that human being gives. Over here, whoever it gets more and more punyam, more than the papam, and the punya exceeds the limit of whatever human birth qualifies, whatever qualifies for human birth, when that punyam exceeds that, then you get the higher lokas prapti. And if the pap exceeds in the human birth, then the lower birth comes. But all this is temporary. So you will keep moving, the gati keeps happening between different lokas. Uh, Eventually, you come back, even go lower, and then the capacity comes probably from there whenever. So it's a vast journey. I'm only elaborating it to get the idea that it's a vast journey. And vast is from a human standpoint. From different lokas, the time and space coordinates are not the same as human time and space coordinates. That's why they are imperceptible to human beings. Therefore, you have to take it on Shraddha, what Veda says. But the purpose is not to say that the validity is not to say that there is this loka and you should look, the knowledge is given of the loka. The validity of that mention of the loka is that there is a sharir yatra, means there is a taking up and giving up of sharira, different bodies you have, you find yourself with. That rebirth can be in any place, finding yourself with a new body and then giving up that body is given up, dies. This cycle of birth and death is what is the point of karma. Lokantara prapti is only to say according to your karma. So, what is the real takeaway of this apara vidya is that punarapi jananam is based on what kind of sharir, what kind of um, time and space where you're born, what kind of life average outline, that is determined by your karma. What sharir you come into, where you're born, that is what is based on karma. Now, what is the purpose of saying that? Obviously, to say that if you can stretch yourself to think that karmas are countless that are performed um, in avidya, countless karmas keep getting added, and some very little seem to be getting exhausted. The rate of exhaustion of karma and the rate of earning karma are definitely not proportionate. The rate of exhaustion is far less than probably rate of earning karma. Every day with our hands, with our organs of action, we are earning karma. And how much is that exhausting is as much as your prarabdha karma is exhausting, and some in between life experiences, what is maturing in this life. Therefore, Karma's point, highlight of that point is, if you are here, karma certainly is bringing a sharira back. And how much is it going to give back? Being countless, innumerable births have gone, innumerable birth can continue. It's a continuous cycle. It's a continuous cycle, and therefore, I'm purposely highlighting it because some of us have also done Vairagya Shatakam only to help us understand what is that Vairagyam that actually amounts for this vast uh, force to be, or that jignasa to develop, enough of travel. Uh, where can I now just put my anchor? Where can I now just know what is truly immortal? Is there a, like Upadesh Sahasri introduction had said, is there even a way to know that am I always going to be a samsari, moving in and moving out, or is there a solution to it? The student in Upadesha Sahasri had asked the teacher there, is there a solution to my feeling this sense of limitation and feeling the sense of individuality and the sukh and dukh? That is there a way, or am I to accept it that this is it? And the teacher had said, of course, there's a way, and that is how Vedanta had started. Brahma Gyan had started. So the same thing here. When the student, when anybody realizes the worthlessness of travel, because you're not really gaining any new experience. I mean, I probably can continue on that realm for some time, but I won't just add a sentence and leave it. You may have heard it before. You can reflect on it. In any life form, wherever these senses are, say in a human form, wherever you, what new experience is getting generated? The same experiences are always there. And according to the senses, so if you are in another form with another set of senses, you have another set of experiences, but there are no new experiences. According to the limitation of the senses is the experience there. So Shastra says, whoever is able to put anchor there to say, what is the new experience I'm ever going to have anyway out of karma? It is just a different in degree. It is never going to be different in kind. So whatever is different in degree, those, are they worthy of so much of an effort? Are they worthy of so much of a yearning? Are they worthy of so much of a chase? Are they worthy of all this? You know, and then you realize no, and that's where the anchor sets. And now the journey towards Atmavidya means towards the knowledge of oneself begins by the knowledge, the opening of oneself to what more is there other than this realm of karma. I'm always the doer, always for something. What else is there? And there he said that, when there's confirmation that karma will give me only this much, then starts the pursuit of searching what else is there that I can have worthiness for, that could be more worthy. And then all this had started. That's how it becomes a sampradaya. Now, Aparavidya, this realm I have elaborated now also. The entire realm of Aparavidya is pointing only to this journey, endless journey that is going to be there. Samsara is the product of karma. Now the Dvitiya Mundaka Prathama Khanda is starting with Paravidya. Now he's going to elaborate. The rest of it is all going to be Paravidya. He's finished with Aparavidya now, for now, and he's going to talk about what is Paravidya also, because main idea is Shaunaka has asked, tell me that one thing with which I know everything. What is that fundamental cause? Cause as in Karanam, as in How can I trace everything back to its source? If you forget the word karanam and cause for now, can everything be traced back to its origin? Whatever I contact, can it be traced back to its origin? And when one goes over it, what how will it be traced back was the question. And he says, this avidya was the cause of your journey. Vidya will be the end of the journey, will end the journey. So if avidya has sustained the journey, obviously vidya will end the journey. And what is that vidya? That vidya is Paravidya, whose topic is Akshara Brahman. Because the topic is Akshara Brahman, Akshara means that which doesn't end. Because that is the topic, no decline, no destruction. Therefore, gaining the knowledge of that which doesn't destroy, which is not declining, which is not disintegrating, which is not temporary, which is not going to be a product like utpadyam, vikaryam, samskaryam, etc., then what is that gain? That Akshara Brahman is the topic, and the first verse also here starts with Tat Etat Satyam. So the realm of karma was also, Aparavidya is also Tat Etat Satyam. Paravidya is also Tat Etat Satyam. It is true. It is Satya. It is Vidya is relevant. It is valid. What is that Satyam? Shankara says here, the Satyam that was mentioned in the Karma portion, the previous section, that Satyam was only Apekshikam. It was temporary. Here Satyam is real Satyam. That is, it is Brahman. And he speaks of this. What is that Akshara Brahman? And he starts by saying, developing the causal relationship, that to reduce everything, is everything reducible? Yes. To what? Brahman. Not only is it reducible, Brahman is also the one from where everything has come. So it's the origin of everything is Brahman, and resolution of everything is Brahman again. So, how is the origin of everything? To point that, he gives the example of, mantra gives the example of how from fire, well lit fire, sparks come. So, um, tadetat satyam yatha, just as sudiptat pavakat sfulingaha. Sudiptat means very well lit, bright. Pavakat, that which purifies. What purifies? We saw this also. Fire purifies. Fire is called also Pavakaha, like air is also Pavan. No? Pavakaha is fire because it also purifies. So from fire, just as Sfulingaha, all sparks, no? Which are also as effulgent, no? Bright sparks. Just as from fire the bright sparks emerge, and the nature, okay, sahasrashaha prabhavante sarupaha. Sahasrashaha, thousands of, prabhavante, emerge. Sarupaha, having the same nature as the fire. So sparks have the same nature as the fire from which they emerged. So Tadetat satyam yatha sudiptat pavakat sfulingaha sahasrashaha prabhavante sarupaha. Thousands of sparks come from fire and they have the same nature as fire. Spark, every spark is fire. It has got the same capacity of heat and light. as the main fire has. In fact, fire itself is all sparks, and from them some sparks as if have come apart, are thrown out, as if emerged. But fire is nothing but all sparks together. And when they're together, they kind of give one flame. And from there are some sparks that have emerged out. In the same way, the mantra says, Tatha, in the same way, Aksharat vividhaha bhavaha prajayante. From in the same way, Aksharat, from that Aksharam Brahman, vividhaha bhavaha, these varieties of beings. Bhavaha here means beings. Varieties of beings, prajayante, are born. O Saumya, Saumya is referring to Shaunaka. The teacher is telling him, O Saumya, just as from fire, you can imagine they were sitting probably where there's some yajna going on, and from that fire the sparks are emerging, and the teacher is taking that example and saying, see, just as from this fire these sparks are coming, reflect on it. Supposing you have a setup like that, and the teacher just says, reflect on this example. This second line is not yet revealed to you. If you are a seeker of knowledge and you've gone to a Brahmanish teacher, and the teacher is only giving you, you're sitting in that context of life where some yajna is going on and ahutis are being put, and fire is well lit, and from there the sparks are coming out also. Some sparks are going here, there. And all the teacher says is, what, reflect on this. What is happening? What is the relation between fire and spark? And the more you reflect, forget about the second line completely. The more you reflect on that example, the student would himself arrive at the correlation. And what is the similarity between spark and fire? Tatha aksharat. In the same way, then, the teacher will say, once that example has got cognized, at the moment we are doing an example like a study, it's a format of study. Oh, the teacher's given an example, and here, just like that, jivas come from Brahman, Aksharam Brahman. All these varieties of life forms have emerged from there. Deadpan. Drives home very little, does drive home, but very little. But if you were to be left alone to reflect on the example, just as from fire the sparks emerge, first think about it. What is the similarity of spark and fire? Absorb that. Once you've absorbed that, then Siddhant is easy to be understood, because just the same way. Now change the relational factors. Just the same way. Instead of fire, say this is Aksharam Brahman. And from there, what has emerged are these Jivatmas. Now, if you have in your example on your own concluded that actually the nature of the spark is not separate from fire at all, though the spark, seems to have a separate entity, though the spark seems to have now a birth, it was there as one in the fire. In fire, you couldn't differentiate sparks at all. But the minute the spark came out, you as if have a different spark. There is a different, there's a different splinter. There's a different, Shastra's word, there is a different rupa, nama rupa. That spark seems to have its own identity. But reflect, does the spark really have its own identity? Is spark really separated from fire? But it looks separate. In the same way, sarupaha is the underlining word. Just as It's the same nature spark has of the main fire. In the same way, Aksharam Brahman, from Aksharam Brahma, Vividhaha Bhavaha Prajayante, they have come. So, what is the similarity now? The similarity is what is actually there? There is nothing separate. All the living beings that are being seen have come from Aksharam Brahma, but even if they have come, they are not separate from Brahman. Even if they are having a identity, name and form, even that name and form, just as a spark has a spark upadhi, uh, the jiva seems to have that upadhi. Even that distinction that seems to be there, essentially, sarupaha, essentially, it is not separate. That vidya, to be able to see that it is not separate, is the topic of paravidya, is paravidya. Not only is it not separate, while the spark remains, it extinguishes. Extinguishes means now as if it's disappeared. But that fire element has not disappeared. It is still the fire element, but now not pratyaksham. So resolves back. The nama roop, having exhausted its existence, temporary existence of different identity, as if seeming different identity, the seeming nama rupa, which is separate, resolves back into its non-separate, non-differentiated state, fire element. Same way, the mantra says tatra, there, chaiva api yanti, tatra cha eva api yanti. The beings come, eva api yanti, again resolve back. They emerge as if emerged with a separate entity and resolve back into Brahman, Aksharam Brahman. So, what is Aksharam Brahman? Now, Shastra here in the mantra has established the first prakriya, that is a commonest prakriya through all Vedantic texts. We saw some of you, of course, I think most of you were there in the Tattva class also, and you saw it very, very detailed, the Srishti Prakarna. The first thing that was established is that Aksharam Brahman is the causal state. You impose the causal state on Nirgunam, and that imposition of making it the cause of which the whole Jagat is the Utpatti, is the Karyam, effect. So Brahman becomes the cause and Utpatti is the effect. That Karya Karana relation gets established. The purpose of the relationship, that is to finally negate the seeming separateness that was introduced first, because our jiva anubhava, as jiva, the anubhava is that there is a separation. Accounting that separation, the teaching starts from there. Accounting it. It's like saying, if I see a snake, already I'm seeing a snake, I'm experiencing a snake, and someone who sees the rope and doesn't see the snake, and because I'm trembling with fear, that someone has compassion and wants me to see the rope. Now, for me, if they are going to make me sit and just say it is a rope, I don't see it. The minute they have to teach me that there is no snake, there is no snake. And whatever you're seeing as snake is actually on the locus of something which is permanent, rope. To get my perception to come to rope and destroy the snake perception, the teaching will start with saying, What snake you are seeing it? Is the snake moving? You know? Is the snake uh, showing any signs of life? Is the snake um, uh, putting up a fang? Is the snake seen by someone else next to me? You know, when that idea is introduced to question the snake, the idea is introduced to say, start examining the snake, and then it is almost like saying, I accept that you see the snake. Virtually never. Sorry. So the idea is that you are seeing the snake and they have to draw your attention to the rope. So, to draw the attention to the rope, they make you examine the snake. And then slowly, slowly, when you say, no, it is not moving, you know, and no, it doesn't seem to be hooding up. Then you ask someone else next to you, do you see a snake? Perhaps yes, or perhaps no. Doubt starts emerging. Is there a snake? But there is a relationship that starts to be forming of saying, is it truly true? Is it true? And then the person says, does snake resemble anything else in the world? Can snake be seen something else like snake? You know something else like snake? And you start thinking. A relationship is getting formed in your thoughts. What else is there that looks like a snake? And if you're an intelligent person and you've done your thinking beforehand, you say, rope. Sometimes rope, I get the idea. The person says, the teacher says, does that look like rope is the cause of a snake? That relationship. Can rope be the cause of the snake that you are seeing? Can you see that rope could be the cause of the snake misperception? That you've not, and 2 minutes you say, oh, okay, let me see closely. Now, by saying that rope could be the cause of the snake, it's actually not a cause. Snake hasn't come from rope. There is no snake. But by building a causal relationship, it has made me come closer to appreciate that actually there is no snake. So the effect snake that I am seeing, that effect is, the minute the effect is destroyed, rope as a cause is also destroyed. There no longer is the causal relationship also surviving, independent of the effect. So where the effect is experienced, sansara is experienced. Where an effect is experienced, the attention is built to draw relation to its cause. And the minute the cause is located, effect is destroyed, and as the effect gets destroyed, the causal identity of that is also destroyed. So the cause and effect relationship entirely vanishes, and what remains is the rope as rope, and therefore Aksharam Brahman. Causal relationship is established with creation because we find ourselves in creation. My identity of myself as an individual, how am I to know what is my real nature? How am I to examine who am I? How am I to figure out how have I come into this world? What happens to me on my death? Am I going to disappear once and for all? How am I to know all this? By developing that relationship, The idea is to finally come to the point that from this Brahman, the sansar has come, and into this it resolves. Therefore, that cause and effect have a non separate relationship with each other, being non separate from each other, just as clay and pot is. Being that non separate, there is actually um, the destruction of the relation on seeing what the truth is, the tattvam is. So, the example given here is fire and spark. Being spark always, though it seems to be separate, remains non separate from fire all along, and the fire seems to be the cause of that spark, but truly speaking, it is not a cause at all. It is its inherent nature. It is the very swarupam of fire itself. In the same way, all the living beings that seem to be here manifested wherever, all the living beings have come from Aksharam Brahma and resolved back into Aksharam Brahman. And in saying this, Shankara in his Bhashyam gives one more example, because he finds that just by giving the example of fire and spark, there can be a thinking person can have a little doubt emerging, and the doubt would be that that separation of the spark that seems to be there, you know, seems to involve spatial difference, and you see two as if over there. To remove that limitation of the example, Shankara adds one more example, and he says, just as there is the relation between total space and pot space. And this is a very signifying example. Space is not divided when a pot is made. When there is a creation of a pot, space seems to have got enclosed in the pot, but space is not divided. No? That pot upadhi is not adequate to bring division in space. So there is no pot space. Even if you use it as pot space, there is really no separate pot space from total space. All that happens is that the pot is becoming the defining factor for space as if enclosed within. And that example, Shankara says, reflect. The minute the jivas have utpatti, it is the deha which is the pot. And this deha utpatti seems to be enclosing that Brahman. Within that deha seems to be that Brahman seems to have now got enclosed in that deha upadhi, and therefore it seems here it is separate from Brahman is paroksh. And what is here? That here seems to be only Jiva Atma, or call it Atman. In identification with the Sharir is now Jivatma. So, what is this? Here, the conscious being, wherever the beings are, difficult to explain, wherever the beings are, every being is not a separate, has no separation from its source, which is Aksharam Brahman. So, Brahman is the essential nature of everyone, even when there seems to be the identity of individual there. Jivatma seems to be the expression. So this is what this verse is talking about. And I think I've covered all the points. So, yes, absolutely extremely beneficial, that second example that Shankara has added, is because now that makes it very, very immediate. What is that immediate thing? The last paragraph he says, just as yatha akashasya sushihi bheda utpatti pralaya nimittatvam. You know, that space becomes as if the nimitta karanam of ghata space and akasha space. Akasha and ghatakasha, as if that is the nimitti now of the separation there. Because of that pot, the pot becomes the creation. The pot is the creation. And that is going to now be explained in the next verse, the second verse, where he is now talking about, just as what is the swarupam of spark is fire, what is the swarupam of each one? This non separate from Aksharam. What is the swarupam of Aksharam, in other words? So he says, Divyaha hi amurtaha purushaha sabahya abhyantaraha hi ajaha apranaha hi amanaha shupraha hi aksharat parataha paraha. So, with this, he is now going to take up the process of, just as that person said, inquire, look, 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 is the snake moving? And you say, no, snake is not moving. What is that not moving? The moving, not moving is known to you. Movement is known to you. And when you figure out whether the snake is moving or not, and you say, no, no, it is not moving, neti. What has happened? Negation of something that is known, and you realize that this doesn't fall into that category. So, through neti, neti, through whatever is your known experience, Shastra does the prakriya of neti, neti, which is the said here in this itself, but otherwise more deeply as Adhyaropa and Apavada. So that Brahman is the Karanam, is Adhyaropa, and Apavada is all the Neti Neti, that it is not, it is not. And that he's now talking about Divyaha, first word. What is Divyaha? Divyaha द्योतनवान स्वयं ज्योतिष्टवात स्वयं ज्योतिहि, being of the nature, tvat, being of the nature of swayam jyoti. Divyaha word, divine, English word is divine. What is divya? Effulgent, light, but not from borrowed sources. Self effulgent is the meaning of divyaha. He amurtaha is the one which is also not a form. I'm just touching, and then we'll continue tomorrow in little more details. Amurtaha does not have a form. Purushaha is here, that Aksharam Brahman is called as a Purushaha here. Sabahya Abhyantaraha is the one who is, you can't say out and in. From the standpoint of the sharir, it is out and in, but it is all pervasive. It's spaces, bahya also, abhyantaraha also. In pot, abhyantara, out of that pot, bahyantara. So, bahya. So, it's bahya and abhyantara. So, space like space, Aksharam Brahman is bahya, abhyantara. So, if you parallel that pot space and total space in your mind, you get this clearly then. He ajaha, not born, unborn, never born. Ajaha, jaha is born, ajaha, indeed not born. Apranaha, no pranas, has no prana gati. He amanaha, no mind. Shupraha, pure, clean, absolutely pure. He aksharat parataha paraha, supremost of beyond everything that's known, supremost. That is paraha. So, knowing Brahman Aksharam as this is Paraha Vidya. And with the help of the examples, knowing the nature, fundamental nature, Swabhava of all beings as Brahman, the distinction is what is created. If you think about it, I'm going to rephrase few things, condense it, summarize this because it's very essential. Kind of a clinching factor this previous verse has been, first verse and second verse put together. We finished Apara Vidya Prakriya, and in Apara Vidya, avidya remains. That means we are talking about the one who is now identified with the sharir and calls himself the jiva and is a karta. That karta bhav is the pointer towards avidya and is also a pointer of identification with the sharir. Sthula Sukshma Sharir. This Sthula Sukshma Sharir is born. So, how is it born? The entire Aparavidya. Who is the Nimitta Karan of the birth of this? Avidya is the root source. Karma is a secondary source. From avidya, karma done is the karanam of this sharira. What is the relation of the being with this sharira? What space? Total space. It is always free of the sharira. Always free of sharir. The being inside is not limited by the body. Space is not limited by the pot. The being is not limited to the body, is not limited to mind. That being is Aksharam Brahman. From where the creation, as if I, which is created, me, the sense of me, the jiva, that has the birth, utpatti there, and also it is in that the laya is there. The resolution is there. Pralaya happens also within that. So the utpatti of the sharira, say in this janma, every day we are born and we die, in relative sense. Every day there is this identification with the sharir, which is the Jagrat Avastha, and you sleep, and in that sleep there is some temporary resolution of the Jiva Buddhi, but avidya sustains. Avidya being sustained, again there is a new day to be seen from whatever the continuity of the karma phal is. New day is again experienced. In that new day, again the idea is I am the jiva. With that, again the karma is done, and again sleep is a temporary resolution, and in sleep avidya still sustains. Because of that, that karma phal again continues the next, and that cycle continues. When this prarabdha karma of this sharira, whatever has to be bhogod in this sharira, when that is exhausted, this sharira drops. But what happens to avidya? That has now become the karanam of a new sharir. And what happens to the being there? Being was not dead when this sharir disintegrated. Being is not born there when that sharir is formed. It is now the identifier of that sharir because avidya carries. So till avidya carries, Brahman is the available source of oneself. Aksharam Brahman you are is available at every point of time, in every form, to everyone, always. It's a Nitya, Shuddha, Buddha, Mukta, Swabhavaha of oneself. But till that Paravidya is recognized, through Paravidya it is recognized. Till then, Avidya has its Satyatvam, as if. That as if is important. And that as if is actually defining it to be Mithya. And this is what he says, I think, in one of the verses very soon. That it is Anritam. It is that Satyam that was mentioned in the realm of karma is actually all Anritam. And that is the topic of Paravidya. To be able to see the Mithyatva, and when that Nishchaya is formed, that is the Brahma Vidya which destroys avidya and therefore samsaragati. And therefore is a mukta, becomes mukta. Jiva is gone. Jiva buddhi is gone. So with this, I think I will conclude the class here. If there's any question or anything, I can wait for a few minutes while we chant. I hope it is okay for all of you and to be here at 5:30. Or else I guess we can take a break and maybe I would think we should. Are you okay to come tomorrow also? I think we'll have a class tomorrow. In all probability, if not, I'll send you the message. Works, 5:30 works. Okay. So we will continue with the class tomorrow for now. Fingers crossed. In case it is, I'll send messages. I'll end the class. Om Sarvesham Swastir Bhavatu Sarvesham Shantir Bhavatu Sarvesham Purnam Bhavatu Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavatu Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha Sarve Santu Niramayaha Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschit Dukha Bhag Bhave. Okay, great. So we will have a class tomorrow. And to my mind, I think the perception's clear and I hope it's sounding so on this format also. The main takeaway here so far has been to strengthen the perception of Jiva Yatra. That is the topic of Aparavidya and the distinction of Paravidya and how they are two different topics entirely, and therefore their phalam is different. Aparavidya is samsaragati, Paravidya is moksha. And when this gets strengthened, you see entire Vedantic knowledge will address only Paravidya. It will never talk about Aparavidya. Even if it talks about Aparavidya, it talks only in the context of gaining Chitta Shuddhi. And that's it. So all the texts of Vedanta, then henceforth, as you keep advancing, or even if you go back and redo your Gita study and everything, you will find your study strengthening further with the drishti of Paravidya. Vani I have added, I mentioned yesterday also, I think in the message after I had ended this, I've added. And somehow, I don't know, even though I'm trying to be as organized with all this that can be possible, I'm still missing out sometimes. So sorry about that, but Thank you, everyone. See you tomorrow. Hopefully, have a reflective day. Om.